Hello and welcome to The Pulse. On Christmas Day 2009, Liu Xiaobo was sentenced to 11 years imprisonment and 2 years deprivation of political rights for inciting subversion of state power. 2 days before his sentence, he wrote his "I have no enemies," my final statement. It was intended to be read out in court, but he was not allowed to finish reading it. A year later, Liu Xiaobo was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. His death on Thursday made him the second winner of that prize to die in captivity. The first, Karl von Ossietzky, who was awarded the prize in 1935, also died in hospital while detained by the Nazi regime. Like Liu, he had been banned from collecting the award himself. Governments and organizations around the world had pleaded for Liu to be allowed to leave China for treatment. Here in Hong Kong, pro-Beijing lawmakers refused to allow his plight to be even debated in LegCo, and Chief Executive Carrie Lam said it's not her role to exert pressure on the central government over Liu's fate.
一个不同政见者，一个意见者，不但要学会怎么反抗，而且你要学会怎么去面对这种打压，怎么样去坐牢。
就是说，我们医疗上支持和治疗实际上已经非常好了。
On Thursday evening, mainland authorities announced the 61-year-old Chinese dissident and Nobel Peace Prize winner Liu Xiaobo had died at 5:35 p.m. at the First Hospital of China Medical University, Shenyang. At the time of his death, he was, according to official announcements, on medical parole from an 11-year sentence imposed in 2009 for his role in the creation of the Charter 08 manifesto the previous year. He had been transferred to the hospital on June 26th for treatment of end-stage liver cancer. Several countries had asked the Chinese government to allow Liu and his wife Liu Xia to leave China for medical treatment. Liu Xiaobo's friend and fellow dissident Liao Yiwu, who moved to Berlin in 2011, had been helping Liu's family to fulfill his last hope of leaving China for Germany. He spoke to the Pulse after the announcement of Liu Xiaobo's death.
刘晓波在这个病床上，甚至 疼的时候，他喊了一句：“要死也要死在德国。”那是我第一次，就是在那天，我给默克尔总理写了信，然后很快就得到回复，他说他们会尽力。刘晓波生前最大的一个愿望，把他妻子送到德国，他其实就是想把他的妻子送到一个自由的地方。
Liao Yu has been a friend of Liu Xiaobo for many years, and they both experienced the 1989 student protest movement, and they both have been imprisoned for their publications.
这次的这个惨无人道，大家已经看见了。
Liu Xiaobo's final prison term was his fourth since the Tiananmen Square crackdown, during which he is said to have saved many lives by negotiating to allow protesters to leave the square peacefully. Authorities still regarded him as an instigator and resented his attempts to ask for the crackdown to be reassessed. Charter 08 had essentially asked the Chinese government to amend and live up to its own constitution, to eliminate one-party rule and to introduce democratic reforms. In 2010, during his final detention for inciting subversion of state power, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, which he was not allowed to collect in person.
Coverage of Liu Xiaobo's death in China has been muted. On social media, messages saying RIP or even showing candle emojis are being deleted. Well, with me in the studio is William Li, China researcher at Amnesty International. Can we just start with that? I mean, in China itself, how well do you think that Liu Xiaobo is known, or indeed news of his death is known?
Well, I think in terms of the broader public, unfortunately, he's not very well known. But this, of course, is because there have been over 25 years of censorship, where his name and his writings, his books have not been able to be published in China, even to the extent, as you mentioned, where emojis showing candles on Weibo are banned. So I think this shows that the government is very, very concerned about silencing his voice. And really, that's kind of what the last month was about, was the debate over whether Liu Xiaobo should be able to go abroad for medical treatment, which of course would have been much better for him. He might have perhaps even had the chance to recover abroad. But I think the government didn't want to take the risk of him going abroad and letting the people, the public, hear his voice again.
Of course, one of the many interesting things about him is within the Chinese dissident community, he was a controversial figure. A lot of people in that community said, oh, you know, you're far too moderate, why don't you go for it?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people these days in the Chinese human rights defenders community who look at the Communist Party as the enemy, or as the government as the enemy. And of course, Liu Xiaobo is most famous for saying, I have no enemies. You know, he saw the good in the prison guard, or in the judges, the people in the system. And it's partly perhaps because he was kind of this moderate critic that he posed such a threat, and that the government made such an example of him by giving him an 11-year sentence, a very, very harsh sentence at the time, which was confounding because, you know, he was considered more moderate by many.
And is his death a big setback for the human rights movement in China?
Of course, it's a tragic thing, and I think many people are mourning, especially in light of the way the last month has happened, not allowing him to go abroad for medical treatment, even though he's a prisoner of conscience and should have been able to travel abroad. But I think he'll have a profound impact on the Chinese human rights community, and maybe even the broader public as time goes on. Eventually, people are going to learn, years from now, who China's Nobel Peace Prize laureate was, and they'll want to know why there was an empty chair in Oslo for the ceremony. So I think that his lasting legacy can't be denied and will continue.
And the Chinese government, in dealing with his case, seems to have demonstrated that the hard line is unshakable.
Unfortunately, that's what we see, is that it seemed like there was a window of opportunity where he might have been able to go abroad, and even state media was hinting that they might let him go. Global Times had an article that said they've let dissidents go in the past and that they haven't produced a big problem for China. So it looked like there was a little bit of debate among the government itself, but obviously the hardliners won out. And right now, it's also crucial to think of what is going to happen to Liu Xia, his wife, a poet and an artist. She has spent the last 7 years in house arrest, intimidated and harassed, and she's developed depression and other issues. So it'll be important that the international community speak up to allow her to go abroad, and to allow her brother to go abroad too, who has also been punished. So,
He's in jail, isn't he?
Well, he has been out on bail, and so I think that, you know, Amnesty International, we are pushing to have a petition to put pressure on the authorities to let Liu Xia go abroad. It's everybody's human right to leave their country freely. She's, of course, never committed a crime and has only been implicated because of Liu Xiaobo. So that'll be crucial, that the international community speak out for Liu Xia at this crucial moment.
Now, the next big event coming up on the Chinese calendar, so to speak, is the Party Congress this autumn. Do you think that will also mark a change in the attitude to dissidents?
Well, you know, traditionally, in the run-up, the few months before a major party congress, has been there have been tightening of civil society. Human rights defenders are often put under house arrest and so on. The difference, I think, now is that this has already happened for 2 or 3 years. So to what extent will it be different? I mean, it'll probably be relatively the same. But clearly, Xi Jinping does not want any major political things to happen between now and the 19th Party Congress. But they've already had a national security law, a law to crack down on NGOs. They're going to introduce measures to tighten VPNs by February.
This is to stop people getting access to the internet.
Yeah, to stop the people who are able to go over the Great Firewall. So clearly we see the intention to clamp down on civil society, on human rights defenders, and access to information. So this is not, and before it used to be cyclical, like there was a loosening and then there'd be a tightening of the situation. But I think what we see under Xi is that there's a permanent tightening of the situation.
Well, William Lee, thank you very much indeed. And we'll be back after the break. See you then. Welcome back. When China's President Xi Jinping came to town 2 weeks ago to mark the 20th anniversary of the handover, he laid down red lines Hong Kong should not cross. He said that on day-to-day matters, we must be guided by a strong sense of one country and firmly observe the principle of one country. Any attempt to endanger China's sovereignty and security and challenge the power of the central government is an act that crosses the red line and is absolutely impermissible. The president's hardline and incidents, such as the treatment of Liu Xiaobo and other dissidents, continue to unnerve many Hongkongers, some of whom are planning to leave. But for many mainlanders, Hong Kong is a place they're keen to live in because they see it as a land of opportunity.
Hong Kong-born Ming is a full-time music teacher. Although he has been teaching music for 8 years, he's not entirely happy with his job. Most of his students, he says, learn music just to get places in high-ranked schools. He says the idea that they or their parents see music primarily as a means for advancement makes his work seem pointless. Two and a half years ago, Ming started thinking about taking his family to Australia for a better quality of life.
香港生存冇問題，但係生活就好大問題。你會見到香港其實都變差唔多一國一制咁噶啦。咁未來係悲觀嘅，你悲觀啊，自然會有憂慮噶啦。咁應該點自處咧？除非你係啲即係但求可以生存嘅人啦。咁我又唔係嗰類型嘅人。咁我開始想移民咧，就係因為過咗佔中之後啦，2014嗰陣覺得咦，喂咁多人醒覺嘅，肯走出嚟嘅，好似有啲希望喎。但係過咗之後就覺得原來係冇希望，即係見到都可能係嗰幾十萬人，咁另外嗰幾百萬人其實都係冇乜點理，個比例上爭咁遠咧，改變唔到啲咩啦。對住咁大個中共政權嚇，有咁多錢，有咁多權力， 冇得鬥。
Ming and his wife, a full-time nurse, have been married for 14 years. They have a 10-month-old daughter. Ming says he wants to take his family to Australia as he has little confidence in Hong Kong's current administration.
香港最慘就係基本生活嗰個住屋空間都剝削嘅，我哋就唔諗住有能力買樓㗎啦，即係有啲錢都攞去移民啦。
Before the 1997 handover, Hong Kong experienced the first and largest wave of mass immigration since the Second World War. What happened in the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown, in particular, left many worrying that the People's Liberation Army would march to Hong Kong right after the handover. Back then, many planned to flee. 20 years after the handover, even many who stayed are anxious about the city's future.
個個都想移民㗎啦，你問親個80後有邊個唔想走㗎？
In 2003, Perry Kay, who grew up in Zhejiang, applied for a one-way permit to Hong Kong. Perry says that back then, he worked very hard to become part of the local culture. He's now married and a father of 2 children. Perry says he loves this territory he calls home.
我覺得呢度係我故鄉嚟㗎啦，即係當你係覺得呢度係故鄉嘅時候，你就唔會計較話你開唔開心啊，你幸唔幸福啊，你買唔買得起樓啊，我冇諗呢啲嘢啦已經。 我只係覺得我就係好自然嘅一件事，我會留喺香港。我呢幾年喺香港生活，參與咁多香港嘅公民運動，已經令到我好自然咁樣，我覺得我已經同佢融合埋一體㗎啦。
覺得呢個香港地方你仍然好中意，仍然會留喺度嘅。
留喺度啦，其實你壞得去邊啫？你壞得去邊啫？你壞得去好似伊拉克咁樣咩？冇可能啊嘛！伊拉克啲人。 唔係一樣留喺嗰度生活，係嘛？就好似我喺大陸過嚟，我都過嚟咗啦，即係都已經活到30幾歲啦。
Her Kay's wife, Lan Qijia, also raised in Zhejiang, came to Hong Kong in 2014. She was pregnant at the time. Before that, she'd been a reporter in Hangzhou and Shanghai. Jia says it wasn't easy living in the mainland as she had to rely on her own research to determine what kind of food and health products were safe. But she doesn't need to worry about that as much in Hong Kong. Even though she agrees that it's getting harder to earn a decent living here, this is far from her main concern.
我们从比如说小的城市，我们一步一步往大城市走，我们本身就要付出很多的努力。我们本身是，我们必须是读书好，我们必须优秀，我们才能够一步一步的往上走。我们没有权利去抱怨，我们没有时间去上街游行。人生就这10年，你们生活在香港，大概觉得这个游行有用。 但是我们，你知道，以前我做记者的时候，一个城市里一天要发生多少次？比如说你家被强拆了，或者是，哎呀，怎么说呢？就任何一件，突如其来的事情，在中国，最后都是不了了之的。 前2天我们在微信上还转了一篇文章，特别逗，就是说，如果你生活在中国，你最好祈祷你自己的整个一生中不要摊上事儿。但凡你摊上事儿，你就会是倒霉的那个人。否则的话，如果你不摊上事儿，你整个一生会觉得生活的还挺幸福的。
On Friday afternoon, the High Court gave its ruling on the acceptability of the LegCo oaths taken by legislators Edward Yu, Nathan Law, Lau Siu Lai and Leung Kwok Hong. We'll leave you with some images of what happened outside the court, and we'll be examining the implications of the ruling next week. Goodbye.
昨日831，今日確認書，追近 TQ2，明日23條。